dictators that we should turn our attention to, but the defenders. And with that, please welcome Speaker the Power. Thank you.
Courage begins with one voice. It's that simple. I did what I had to do. That is what we know. You walk into the corridor of death and you know. You know this moment might be your last.
You walk into the corridor of death.
And you know this moment might be your last.
That is what you know.
I know what it is to wait in the dark for torture, and what it is to wait in the dark for truth. I did what I had to do. Anything else would have tasted like ashes.
If we don't do this, who will?
My name is Desmond Tutu. For 46 years, South Africa suffered under apartheid, a system of legal racial discrimination under which the rights of the majority Black citizens were curtailed and white supremacy and Afrikaner minority rule were enforced, often violently. Many of those who suffered most grievously in South Africa have been ready to forgive. People you thought might be consumed by bitterness, a lust for revenge. We had a hearing at the Truth Commission, chock-a-block full with people who had lost loved ones, massacred. 4 officers came up, 1 white, 3 Black. The white said, "We gave the orders for the soldiers to open fire." In this room, where the tension could be cut with a knife, it was so palpable. Then he turned to the audience and said, "Please forgive us. And please receive these, my colleagues, back into your community." And that very angry audience broke out in quite a deafening applause. And I said, no, let's keep quiet. Because we are in the presence of something holy. I did what I had to do. Anything else would have tasted like ashes. It would have been living a lie. I could have been part of the struggle in a less prominent position. But God took me, as they say, by the scruff of the neck, like Jeremiah. I have a God who doesn't say, "I got you." No, God says, "Get up." And God dusts us off. And God says, "Try again." God says, "Try again."
My name is Digma Ochoa. I'm a nun and a lawyer. My father was a union leader in Veracruz, Mexico. In the sugar factory where he worked, he was involved in the struggle for running water and roads and securing land certificates. Then he was disappeared and tortured. The charges against him fabricated. And then I myself was disappeared and held incommunicado for 8 days. Now I felt in the flesh what my father had felt, what other people had suffered. I've always felt anger at the suffering of others. If an injustice doesn't provoke anger in me, it could be seen as indifference, passivity. One time, we filed a habeas corpus on behalf of a man who had been disappeared for 20 days. The authorities denied having him in custody and then denied us access to the state hospital where we knew he was being held. During a change in shifts, I slipped in. I got to the door of his room, took a deep breath, opened the door so violently and yelled at the federal judicial police officers inside. I told them they needed to leave immediately. I was this person's lawyer and needed to speak with him. They didn't know how to react, so they left. I had 2 minutes, but it was enough to get him to sign a piece of paper proving he was in the hospital. Then the police came back, tears. They didn't expect me to assume the attack position. The only position in karate I know, from movies, I suppose. Of course, I didn't really know karate, but they thought I was going to attack. Trembling inside, I said, if they laid hand on me, they'd see what would happen. And they drew back, saying, "You're threatening us?" And I said, "You take it any way you want."
My name is Sezgin Tanrikulu. I am a lawyer. When I'm in court here in Turkey, eye to eye with people that I am accusing of torture, when they look into my eyes and I don't look away, when they look into my eyes and I don't look away, I feel that I have more courage than they do. Of course, I was followed from the moment I stepped foot outside my door every morning. There was nothing left to do but find humor in the situation. Most of the time when people are killed, they're assassinated with one bullet from behind. At our human rights organization, we joked at the notion of placing mirrors on our shoulders so we could see who was creeping up. So we could see who was creeping up from behind to try to kill us.
My name is Muhammad Yunus. I started a Grameen program to provide access to credit for the poor. The professionals say development involves multi-million-dollar loans for enormous infrastructure projects. But I work with real people, the real world. The night before, a woman is going to get her $35 from the bank. She will be tossing and turning to decide whether she is really going to be able to repay the loan. And then she holds the money and she will tremble and tears will roll down her cheeks and she won't believe we would trust her with such a large amount of money, $35. And she struggles to pay that first installment and the second installment, and she goes on for 50 weeks in sequence, and every time she's braver. And when she finished her last one, she wants to celebrate. It's not just a monetary transaction that had been completed. She felt she was nobody, and she really did not exist. And now she can almost stand up and challenge the whole world, shouting, "I can do it. I can make it on my own."
I want to be free of these memories. My name is Diana Ortiz. I want to be trusting, confident, adventurous, and carefree as I was in 1987 when I came from the United States to the Western Highlands of Guatemala, an American citizen eager to teach young indigenous children to read and to write in Spanish and in their native language, and to understand the Bible in their culture. But on November 2nd, 1989, The Diana Ortiz I just described to you ceased to exist. Now, at this moment, I hardly remember the life I led before I was abducted at age 31. You may think it is strange, but even at this moment, I can sense the presence of my torturers. I can smell them. I can hear them hissing in my ears. I remember that policeman that raped me again. Then I was lowered into a pit full of bodies. Children, men, women, some decapitated, all caked with blood. A few were still alive. I could hear them moaning. Someone was weeping. I didn't know if it was me or somebody else. The men who tortured me were never brought to justice. The American who was in charge of my torture was never brought to justice. So now I know what very few US citizens do know. I know what it is to be an innocent civilian and to be accused, interrogated, and tortured. I know what it is to have my own government ignore my claims for justice and actively destroy my character because my case causes political problems for them. I know what it is to wait in the dark for torture and what it is to wait in the dark for truth. I am still waiting.
My name is Elise. Never shall I forget the night, the first night again. Just my life into one long night. 7 times cursed and 7 times sealed. Never shall I forget those moments which murdered my God and my soul and turned my dreams to dust. Never shall I forget these things, even if I am condemned to live as long as God himself. Never. Then came the march past the victims. The 2 men are no longer alive. Their tongues were hanging out, swollen and bluish. But the 3rd rope was still moving. The child, to life, was still breathing. And so we remained for more than half an hour, lingering between life and death, writhing before our eyes, and we were forced to look at him at close range. He was still alive when I passed him. His tongue was still red, his eyes not yet extinguished. Behind me, I heard the same man asking, "For God's sake, where is God?" And from within me, I heard a voice answer, "Where he is? This is where, hanging here from these gallows." That night, the soup tasted of corpses. We must take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. Sometimes we must interfere when human lives are endangered, when human dignity is in jeopardy, national borders and sensitivities become irrelevant. Wherever men and women are persecuted because of their race, religion, or political views, must, at that moment, become the center of the universe. Speak truth to power.
Courage begins with one voice. My name is Juliana Dawit. I am from Ghana. When I was 7 years old, my parents took me from my home and sent me to a shrine where I was a slave to a fetish priest for 17 years. My grandfather, they said, had stolen $2. When members of my family began to die, a soothsayer said that my family must bring a young girl to the shrine to appease the gods. 12 of us, 4 women and 8 children, lived in a house with only one room and a straw roof. No windows, no doors. Rain got in. The snakes got in. The ceiling was low, just shy of our heads, and we all slept together on a mat on the floor. A typical day in the shrine. You wake up at 5 in the morning, go to the stream so far away to get water for the compound, sweep, prepare meals for the priest, not eating any yourself, go to the farm, work until 6 o'clock, and return to sleep after scrounging for leftovers. At night, the priest would call one of us to his room. I was about 12 when I was first raped. I had to do something that would change my life. Finally, one day I got my chance. I don't know where my sudden confidence came from, but all my fear had disappeared. With my newborn baby strapped to my back, and with my first child, Wonder, in my hands, I escaped through the bush. Now that I had escaped, I helped to diminish the women's fears by telling them my story. What I do is dangerous, but I'm prepared to die for a good cause. This was my weapon. This is still my weapon. Speak truth to power.
My name is Duan Viet Quat. I spent 20 years in Vietnamese prisons. 4 of those were in isolation. I was forbidden pen, paper, books. To keep my spirits up, I sang. I talked to myself. The guards thought I was mad, but I told them if I did not talk to myself, I would go mad. I tried to think of my cell as a home, as though I had entered a religious way of life like a monk. Zen meditation helped. With it, you turn inside. And I managed to secretly write a report about conditions in the camp. I felt that if you kept silent in jail, then the dictators had won. I wanted to prove that you cannot, by force, silence someone who does not agree with you. I continued to fight, even from within the prison walls. If we don't do this, who will?
My name is Rana Hussaini. In the name of honor, a 16-year-old girl here in Jordan was killed by her family because she was raped by her brother. When I went to investigate the crime, I met with her 2 uncles. Why was it her fault that she had been raped? Why did not the family punish the brother? They answered that she had seduced her brother. I asked them, why, with millions of men on the street, would the girl choose to seduce her own brother? They only repeated that she had tarnished the family image by committing an immoral act. The only way to rectify the family's honor was to have her killed. The average term served for an honor killing is only 7.5 months. But it's important to know that people who commit the killings are also victims. If you don't kill, you are responsible for your family's dishonor. If you do kill, you will be a hero.
My name is Jamie Nabasna. When I was in 7th grade, kids called me bad and queer. I told the principal. She said, I'll take care of it. But nothing changed. One day I was in a bathroom with my brother, and some kids pushed us into a stall and punched us. I thought, now that it has turned violent, the principal has to do something. But she said to me, Jamie, if you're going to be so openly gay, these things are going to happen to you. I attempted to kill myself. During 8th grade science, 2 boys started groping me. They grabbed me, pushed me down to the ground. They pretended like they were raping me in front of the entire class. I ran to the principal's office, expecting surely she's going to do something, now that it's a sexual thing. And she just looked at me, shook her head, and said, Jamie, if you don't have an appointment, then I don't have anything to say to you. In high school, they beat me so badly, I had to be taken to the hospital. I had to have emergency abdominal surgery for internal bruising and bleeding. I knew it wasn't going to be safe at school. Then I met this crazy lesbian lawyer, and we won. Now school administrators have a personal responsibility to protect students from harassment, and if they do not, they can be individually be sued, like a doctor for malpractice. I have always said, I don't care why people do the right thing, just that they do the right thing.
The phone rang, and the voice said, the man said, I know who you are. I know your name, I know where you're located, I know where you live, and I'm going to come with a few guys and kill you. I started the first domestic violence hotline in Russia, 1993, almost by accident. My son has a classmate, and his mother asked me for advice. When a button fell off her husband's suit and was not fixed quickly, he took a shoe and slapped her in the face. For 2 weeks, she couldn't go out. She called me one night in distress. Half her face was black and blue. I asked her, why don't you just leave him? And she said, where would I go, Maria? I depend on him completely. So I started thinking that I should refer her to somebody. But there was nowhere to go. Nobody to help her. So I started the hotline. And then we started a new program training lawyers in domestic abuse cases. The attitude during Soviet times was that if you are a bad wife, then you have faith as a woman and as a wife. That's why women came to me who had been brutalized for 26 years. I was the first person they could turn to openly. I'm not an extraordinary person. I was at the beginning of something new and great in Russia, a new attitude. Now everybody is talking about domestic violence, and many people are doing something about it. Speak truth to power.
My name is Kailash Satyarthi. When I was 5 or 6 years old, the very first day that I went to my school, I found a cobbler and his son sitting right on the doorstep of my school. They were cleaning and polishing shoes of children. And as soon as I was entering, there was a lot of joy and happiness. I was carrying new books, a new bag, new clothes, new uniform, everything new. And I saw that child and I stopped for a while because in my knowledge, my conscience, it was the first encounter like that. So one thing came to my mind, that why a child of my age is sitting and polishing shoes for children like me, and why am I going to school? So I wanted to ask this question to the child, but I did not have enough courage. So I entered in and my teacher welcomed me, but I did not ask this question, though I still had that feeling in my heart that I should. A couple of hours later, I collected all my courage and I asked my teacher, "Sir, I wanted to know why this child of my age is sitting right on the doorstep and cleaning shoes." So he looked at me strangely and said, "What are you asking? You've come here to study, not for all these unnecessary things and all these questions. It is not your business." So I was a little angry. I thought that I should go back home and ask these questions to my mother. And I asked. And she said, "Oh, you have not seen. Many children are working. It is their destiny. They are poor people. They have to work." I was told not to worry about it. But one day I went to the father, the cobbler, and I said, "I watch this boy every day. I have a question. Why don't you send your child to school?" So the father looked at me, and for 2 minutes, he could not answer. Then he slowly replied, "I am untouchable, and we are born to work." So I could not understand why some people are born to work and why some people like us are born to go to school. How does it come from? So it made me a little bit rebellious in my mind because nobody was there to answer. Whom should I ask? My teacher had no answer. Nobody had a good answer. And I carried that in my heart for years. And now I am doing something about this. 5 million children in India alone are born into slavery. Small children of 6, 7 years, forced to work 14 hours a day. If they cry for their parents, they are beaten severely. Sometimes hanged upside down on the trees, branded or burned with cigarettes. And the number of children are going up, parallel to the growth of exports. The export of carpets go up, and the children in servitude go up and up. So we conduct consumer campaigns and direct actions. Secret raids that free those children and return them to their families. But when you free them, the work has just begun.
My name is Marian Wright Edelman. One thing I remember about working with Dr. Martin Luther King is how he looked scared. I remember him saying how terrified he was of the police dogs in the back of the car when he was being taken out to rural Georgia after he was arrested. He used to say, "You can be scared, but you shouldn't let it paralyze you. You don't have to see the whole stairway to take the first step. If you can run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. If you can't crawl, just keep moving. Just keep moving. Just keep moving."
My name is Aminatu Haidar. I am from Western Sahara. In 1975, Morocco invaded our country. Over 100,000 of my people have subsisted in refugee camps in southern Nigeria for the past 38 years. The rest of us survive in heroic resistance against the Moroccan military occupation. In my city, there are police and army vehicles on almost every block. Secret police follow us day and night. We are never safe. One day when I was about 20, with 70 other non-violent demonstrators, the Moroccan police disappeared me. They tortured me, tied me to a wooden plank with my head down, slapped and kicked me again and again. They kept me blindfolded for 4 years. I was in solitary confinement most of the time. When they finally released me, I was like a ghost. The living dead. A young woman back from hell that bears no name. On November 1st, 2012, I reported human rights abuses to the UN representative in Moroccan-occupied Western Sahara. The police followed me home, dragged me from my car into the street and beat me. They tried to stab me with a knife, but miraculously I escaped. If not for the Robert F. Kennedy Center, my children would be orphans today. I do what I do for the dignity of my people and my children, for those who are lost and cannot be found, for those who endure immeasurable sacrifices in defending their rights. I will keep this non-violent struggle, and I will keep speaking truth to power.
My name is Frank Mugisha. I'm from Uganda. I was 6 or 7 years old when I realized I was attracted to people of my own sex. I thought I was alone. My classmates were expelled just for rumors of being gay. Then their fathers threatened to kill them, or their families threw them out of the house. My fear increased. I decided that I would never tell anyone. So I tried to fit in and be like my colleagues. I tried to change myself. I prayed to God, but it didn't work. At 14, I told someone I was gay because I couldn't keep it in anymore. The moment you come out and say you're gay in Uganda, the attacks begin. Family and friends reject you. Employers throw you out of your job. You never know who's going to harass you, bully you, assault you on the streets, arrest you, and then torture you. The family of a lesbian will ask an uncle to rape the girl, to teach her to be a woman. Friends and colleagues have been murdered. I can't go out casually. I can't just go shopping. I don't know if it's safe to use public transport because before I leave the house, I have to calculate, will I be safe? Yet I must. Because just appearing on television in Uganda and speaking out helps many people accept themselves. They know that they are not alone in the world. They know there is a voice out there for them. That is where I get my courage. Knowing that every day of my life, every minute of my life, I make a very small difference, but that small difference has a huge impact on so many people. There is nothing gay or straight about human rights. Regardless of who we love, everyone has the right to protection under the law. Speak truth to power.
My name is Helen Prejon. When I came out of the execution chamber with Patrick, the first time I witnessed a man being killed, I was clear inside. You're either paralyzed by something like that, or you're galvanized. Galvanized, the resurrection principle of life, overcoming death, resisting evil. Patrick was dead. I didn't have a choice. I would take people there through my stories. We don't know what else to do, so we imitate criminals' worst behavior with the death penalty, the act of supreme despair. And yet, I believe that if we bring people to their own best hearts, they will respond. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't marry that man. He was 45 and I was 17. He already had 3 wives. But my aunt said, I know you don't love him now, but once you get kakia, you will learn to love him. Tomorrow will be the day of kakia. But with the help of my sister, I escaped from Togo. I managed to make my way to the United States with a false passport. I told the immigration officer at the Newark airport that I wanted asylum, and I told her everything. Well, not everything, because it's so embarrassing, and I didn't mention kakia. I don't think she would understand. Whether I got asylum or not was up to the judge, said, so you will go to prison. They put me in chains. In the detention center in New Jersey, I met Cecilia Jeffrey, another prisoner. She treated me like a daughter. When I'd go to bed, she would come and tuck me in. I was so sick and they didn't give me any medicine. And I thought, if I'm going to die, why don't I go back? And Cecilia said, are you crazy, Fozia? Do you know what you're going back to? Do you know? Are you crazy, Fozia? She said, you want to go back to Togo? Next day, Cecilia was in the shower and asked me to come and see. She was standing in there and she opened her legs and said, look, is this what you want to go back to? I didn't know what I was seeing. It was nothing like female genitals, nothing. It was like a real plain thing, almost like the palm of my hand. And then just a scar, like a stitch and a little hole. That's it, no lips, nothing. Kakia. I said, you live with this? And she said, all my life, I cry all the time when I see it. I cry inside. I feel weak. I feel defeated all
And I looked at her, and I saw the strongest woman on earth. Outside, you can't really tell that she's suffering. She's the most loving person I have ever met. She made me stay and win my case.
My name is Oscar Arias Sanchez. Military spending is not merely a consumer access. Instead, it represents a huge perversion in the priorities of our civilization. $780 billion each year invested in instruments of death, in guns and fighters designed to kill people that could be spent on human development. If we channel just 5% of that figure over the next 10 years, just 5% of those billions into anti-poverty programs, all of the world's population would enjoy basic social services. The poor of the world are crying out for schools and doctors, not guns and generals. The 3 richest people in the world have assets that exceed the combined gross domestic product of the poorest 48 countries. Speak truth to power.
We do not have the right to lose hope. My name is Bobby Muller. One of the things that really pissed me off when we were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for our work against landmines was the romanticized treatment in the media to make people feel good, inspired. It was horseshit. People think that because there's an international treaty, that it's done. The job's over. Look, we live our lives largely insulated from the depth of despair, of pain and anguish. That's why I feel so strongly about going after laws and making them real. The belief that you cannot allow the genocides, the Cambodias and the Rwandas of this world to play out. Because if we do, then it's a breeding ground. And we sow the seeds of destruction. And one day, that degree of madness is going to walk right up the block and come into your neighborhood.
My name is... I cannot reveal my name. I am from Sudan. My parents taught us as children how to love our people, however simple, however poor. Our home was always busy home. We always had somebody who was sick coming for treatment or somebody giving birth. I learned to regard all the Sudanese as my own family. But I cannot reveal my name. Those whom the government suspect of working on human rights are arrested, often tortured in ghost houses, or if they're lucky, go to prison. If I revealed my name, I couldn't do my work.
If she revealed her name, she should not do her work. If I turn my back and walk away, who is going to do this work? If we don't do this, who will?
Did it take courage? I would say instead it took stubbornness, like a metal cord inside.
Courage begins with one voice. If we don't do this, who will?
If we don't do this, who will? If we don't do this, who will?
Names we won't forget. Others will forget.
Others will forget these names. They're already fading from memory, those names. In spite of the triumphant, defiant finale, if we don't do this, who will? The lights on them now, and the applause about to start and surround and caress them, the lights that begin to dim go out one by one. As the audience goes home, the spectators flick on their TV set back home, and a faraway face, perhaps one of these very faces, flares up in pain and then dies out.
And then it's time for dinner. And it's time again for sleep. And tomorrow, we'll be back where it's always been. Finally. Them and us again.
Them and us again. Them and me. Them and me all over again. Where that up there beyond us, beyond even these dim lights and the others, are the others who have never had a spotlight, whose names even I don't know. The expendable others beyond the lights. Their voices never recorded or transcribed. Their bodies beyond invisibility.
Them and me, again and again, sharing in the deepest recesses of the night, sharing this one scrap of knowledge. Life only belongs to you once. I am waiting here with this knowledge. I also know how to wait.
I don't want to pretend I was a hero. In the beginning, I had neither pen nor paper to work with.
But you don't live your life in fear. It would be better to die early. Anything else will have tasted like ashes. That's what you know.
Something is there. A light is there. I did what I had to do. Knowing this, the poor of the world are crying out.
That is what you know. Anything else would have tasted like ashes. That is what you know. The poor of the world are crying out for schools and doctors, not generals and guns.
I was never alone. That's what you know. We did what we had to. That's all.
Did it take courage? It took stubbornness.
Stubbornness!
Like a metal cord inside. The feeling of inner strength like a metal cord inside. Anything else would have tasted like ashes. Knowing this, we owe something to the people left behind.
And God dusts us off, and God says,
Try again.
And God says,
Try again.
God says life will only belong to you once. Only this once. And so we continue, knowing this. If we bring people to their own best hearts, they will respond. That is what you know. We were never alone.
And so we continue, waiting in the dark for the truth. We were never really alone.
I don't want to pretend I was a hero. I did what I had to do, that's all. It's really so simple. That is what you know. The work has just begun.
That is what we know. We did what we had to do. The work has just begun.
My name is John Heffernan, and I direct Speak Truth to Power for the Robert F. Kennedy Center for Justice and Human Rights. And the program is not over, so please bear with me for a little while, and then we'll have a conversation with Kerry Kennedy and with President Martin Schultz and with Barbara Luckweiler and with David Edwards from Education International, a brief conversation about human rights education. But before that, I am very honored to bring you, you've all heard them, you've heard their stories, you've seen their pictures, and now we'd like you to hear from Aminatu Haidar and Kailash Sahatji.
I really feel humbled, but encouraged to see and being witness of this historic movement. And not only the artist, but some of the most important and well-meaning politicians are amplifying our voices and our faces. So thank you very much. Every child is born free. But some of us made them slaves. Not only one or two, but millions. I always believe that freedom is divine. Freedom is the best gift of the God to human being. So, slavery is crime against humanity and God. The time when I liberate a child from the clutches of slavery and take back to his or her mother, and the mother who lost all the hope embraces her, I feel that God is smiling behind the joyful tears of that mother. And I have experienced thousands and thousands of times. So I'm very lucky. I can tell with fullest of my conviction and determination that slavery is going to end soon. It is going to become the history soon. What I call upon you now, please join hands as we did now to give a big push to make it sooner. We have to make child slavery and child labor a history as soon as possible. And I'm sure that together we fight, together we win, speak truth to power. Thank you.
besoin de quelqu'un qui a le courage de dire la vérité. Le peuple sahraoui souffre l'injustice, souffre la complicité, souffre le silence. Nous sommes fiers des personnalités comme vous, des personnes comme vous, qui croyez au principe des droits de l'homme. On a l'espoir que dans ce monde injuste, il existe encore des personnes qui défendent les peuples opprimés. Nous avons besoin de votre soutien et de votre appui pour mettre fin à cette injustice et pour garantir les principes des droits de l'homme, les principes de l'humanité et surtout l'existence d'un peuple qui lutte pour son existence et sa liberté. Merci beaucoup. Merci, Monsieur le Président. Merci tous les acteurs et les actrices, les eurodéputés. Merci, Madame Kelly Kennedy. C'est grâce à vous que je suis aujourd'hui parmi vous, que j'ai pu regagner mon pays, le Sahara occidental, que j'ai pu embrasser mes 2 enfants après la grève de la faim que j'ai entamée aux îles Canaries en 2009. Merci beaucoup.
Please say